What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back, everyone. This is Lee, and yes, today's the day we'll be talking about the SIRUI 75mm 1.2 lens versus the VILTROX 75mm 1.2 lens. So with all that said, let's begin. So right before we get started, I just want to point out that SIRUI, they did send this lens over to me for evaluation, and as usual, all opinions are my own opinions about the product. So with all that out the way, let's take a look at the price. So the VILTROX 75mm 1.2 lens comes in at roughly 580 USD, whereas the SIRUI 75mm 1.2 lens comes in at 319 USD, and that's the sales price, but the original retail price was 399 USD. So throughout this entire video, you guys need to decide if the VILTROX is actually worth that extra 260 USD from the sales price or 180 USD from the retail price. So with all that in mind, let's take a look at some quick specs. So the SIRUI versus the VILTROX, they both are a 1.2 aperture lens, and they are both 112.5mm full frame equivalent. SIRUI sports 15 blades, whereas the VILTROX sports 11 blades. SIRUI has 13 elements in 9 groups, whereas the VILTROX has 16 elements in 11 groups. SIRUI has 4 high refractive index glass, whereas the VILTROX has 3 ED elements and 4 high refractive glass as well. So that is going to be very interesting. Also, SIRUI sports a 67mm filter thread, whereas the VILTROX sports a 77mm filter thread. So with these specs out the way, let's take a look at some features. Now, as for the first features, the lens hood. The VILTROX is sporting a longer, wider lens hood than the SIRUI, and we'll definitely see why later on in the image quality test. And as for the weight, the SIRUI weighs about 502 grams, whereas the VILTROX weighs about 784 grams, which is almost 300 grams difference. That's a huge difference, by the way. But anyways, and as for the USB-C, they're both located at the rear of the lens for both brands. Now, let's take a deeper dive with the VILTROX. The VILTROX is made out of full metal, so aperture ring, the focus ring, all metal. The whole encasing of the lens is all metal. Also, VILTROX offers a shortcut key button, a autofocus to manual focus switch. Also, it has an aperture ring that clicks. If you don't like the click, you could turn that off if you want. And also, looking at the rear of the lens, it's weather resistant. Now, and as for the SIRUI, it comes in 3 flavors, but I picked the carbon fiber, and also it sports a focus ring, and that is basically it. There's no buttons, no aperture ring, nothing like that, no weather resistant like the VILTROX, so definitely keep that in mind. So with all that out the way, let's take a look at our first test. Now, as for the first test, this is the vignetting test at 1.2 aperture. I do notice that the VILTROX has slightly more vignetting than the SIRUI, and also throughout this entire aperture range, I noticed that the SIRUI is a slightly brighter image than the VILTROX. Now, as for the distortion, I noticed that both lenses do not have any crazy distortion. However, I did notice that the SIRUI has slight focus breathing. It's slightly wider than the VILTROX, so definitely keep that in mind. Now, as for the flare test, I do notice that the VILTROX do have more flare than the SIRUI at 1.2 and 1.4, so definitely you need to put your lens hood on your lens if you're shooting outdoors or in like a sunny condition, because you'll get that type of flare in your image, which is not pleasant. But the SIRUI, it seems to diffuse the image in a warmer tone when it comes to shooting directly at the sun. And since we're photographing this aluminum roof on a sunny day at direct sunlight, let's take a look at the chromatic aberration. I actually don't see much from either brand, so in that case, let's take a look at 300%. And as we take a look at 300%, you can definitely see that the SIRUI has slightly tiny bit more CA over the VILTROX, and roughly around F2, that's when the CA disappears. So I guess with the flare on the VILTROX, it disappears around F2, and the CA disappears on the SIRUI at F2. So F2 might be the sweet spot for both lenses. Now, as for the next test, this is the bokeh ball test, and if you watch all my videos, you know me, I don't have any opinions about bokeh balls. It's very subjective, so I'm going to leave this up to you guys to decide. Definitely leave your comments down below. But from what I see, due to the focus breathing on the SIRUI, you actually get more balls in your scene, whereas the VILTROX, I do notice that the image is slightly darker throughout this entire aperture range. And in terms of balls, Either one will work fine for me, but it's really up to you guys to decide which balls you guys like. So definitely leave your comments down below. I would love to know what you guys think. Now for this next test, this is the bokeh blur test. This is when I'm shooting at an object in the middle of the scene and we're shooting at a tree branch. You get to see the background, midground, and foreground. This is 24 feet away. I'm gonna let you guys decide on your end because bokeh blur is very subjective as well. Also, keep in mind, SIRUI is focus breathing. VILTROX do have heavy vignetting at the wide 1.2 aperture. So definitely leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Now here is 18 feet away. I am getting closer to the subject. I'm just trying to show you guys the compression with this 112.5mm full frame equivalent. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think so far. And here is 12 feet away from the subject in the scene, which is a tree branch. Definitely take a look at the blur in the background, midground, foreground. This is typical portrait distance right here. So definitely imagine a human in the middle of the image with the bokeh blur that you are seeing right now. And definitely leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. And we are 6 feet away from the subject. So this distance right here at 6 feet, this is the typical headshot, bust shot, B-U-S-T, whatever you want to call it. Basically, this is a facial shot for all you photographers out there that want a portrait lens. This is what it kind of looks like right here. So definitely take a look at the compression, the bokeh blur. Let me know down below what you guys think, which one you guys prefer. Do you guys like the cooler tone on the VILTROX or the warmer tone on the SIRUI? Let me know down below. Now, as for the sharpness test, this is a 6 feet range. I will say that in terms of center sharpness, it all looks semi more or less the same. Maybe the VILTROX is slightly a tad sharper at f1.2, 1.4, but at 2.0, everything looks more or less the same. This is dead center of the image. Now, let's take a look at the bottom of the image. Now at the lower end of the image, I will say that the VILTROX at 1.2, 1.4 is sharper than the SIRUI, but roughly around f2 is when everything kind of, evens up. So it seems like if both lenses, if you guys are shooting at f2, it's more or less kind of equal if you think about it, but I'll let you guys decide on your own end. So the SIRUI 75mm 1.2 lens versus the VILTROX 75mm 1.2 lens, both lenses, it's actually very interesting to see how things played out throughout this entire test. I mean, you're paying $260 USD more for the VILTROX just for the exterior build, the more, clicky features like the autofocus to manual switch, to the aperturing, to the aperturing clicks, to the shortcut key, also the weather resistant and longer lens hood, which you do need on the VILTROX. Also, with all that in mind, the lens is slightly heavier than the SIRUI, but the lens do offer a ton of sharpness at 1.2 from top to bottom. However, with that in mind, the flaring on the VILTROX, that was not a good flaring right there. That is what happens when your lens element is bigger than the competition. So with that in mind, the SIRUI at 320 USD, this lens, I mean, it's performing pretty well actually if you think about it, because at 1.2, it's center sharpness more or less the same. It's lighter, carbon fiber. Also, keep in mind, the focus breathing might be a pro to some because that means you need to move up to your subject and frame the shot a little bit more than the VILTROX. So you get to actually talk to your participant a little closer than the VILTROX because you're actually getting closer to the actual subject. So that is something for you guys to definitely take note of. And also, the f2 is kind of like the sweet spot for both lenses because all the issues kind of disappear. Lens gets sharper, chromatic aberration disappears, flare is gone, and it's just another ball game at that point. So I'll let you guys decide. Definitely leave the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. But all in all, thank you guys for checking me back. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely click like and subscribe. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next one, all right? Take it easy. Peace.